Hi, I'm Stefan, the BMW DIY guy, and I'm back here at BMW Seattle because I want to give you a tour and a walk around of the brand new 2022 X3M. Alright, so let's talk about this gorgeous car. We're going to do a quick walk around. I want to show you the exterior, the interior, some of the features, and then take you on a drive. So you'll have a sample of what it would be like if you came down and did a test drive yourself. Now, this is the brand new 2022 LCI, so that's the life cycle refresh. So about halfway through the life cycle of any given model, BMW will come along, they will update, they'll make some changes, any lessons that they've learned, any things they want to change, any technology that's improved since they released the initial model. This is the brand new LCI, so we're going to walk through all the new changes, the little differences here and there, like for example on the front, also on the rear, some of the updates to the interior, even the new touchscreen display. So I'm really excited to show this car to you, so let's go ahead and do that quick walk around, talk about some of the features, and then we'll go for that drive. All right, y'all, so forgive any background noise today. It's another busy day here in Seattle as always, but what a great opportunity to show you the changes that you're going to see in this brand new X3M Competition. So with the LCI, or that life cycle refresh, I really love the LCI cars because they've taken what they've learned, they've made some changes, some stylistic updates, and you get to see kind of the direction that the entire model line is going. So in this case, one of the most dramatic changes you're going to see right off is from the front. Now the front fascia or front bumper is significantly different, and when I walk up, get a little bit closer, I'll kind of show you what the previous design looked like. But you have these vertical openings on each side, reminiscent of the new G80 or G82, the new M3 and M4. So you can see very similar design language where they're bringing the brands together. You can see the highlights of the M cars all with each other. Now the good thing about all this venting is it's still just as functional, if not more so. So as you look at this, you can actually see this is huge venting that goes all the way back to your auxiliary radiators on both sides. So I'm willing to bet you that your airflow is just as good, if not better, than what it was before. Now, one of the other things that'll stand out, which is perfect in the sunlight right now, is you can see the design change in the hood itself. So now, with these great shadows to kind of show off all the contour and texture to the hood, you can see not only the big primary lines that go back, but also has this new line that comes down, ties into the kidneys on both sides. So you've got all of this extra form that comes down to give quite a bit of character to the hood, and I think it's quite a bit of an improvement. Now, you know, the days of the bland flat hood are kind of come and gone. Now, one other thing I want to point out, they're not new, but these adaptive LED headlights are amazing. These are absolutely fantastic, and if you haven't had an opportunity to drive a car or own a car with adaptive LEDs, especially these from BMW, you really need to try it. My F87 M2 was the first car that I had with the adaptive LEDs, and they really are so cool. You'll be able to turn into a corner and watch your headlights separate a little bit as the interior light will turn into your turn, so you can see a little bit better. You'll see it come back around, straighten out as you straighten out of the curve. So fantastic technology. You also can get the BMW laser light optional with these. This car doesn't have it, but it's an additional bit of technology for the headlights you can add. Now these are the stock 21-inch M wheels. They look great. You also can see the M brakes behind them as well, and you actually have a choice of colors there as you go through these, and red, blue, and black are very common. Adaptive suspension as always, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into the interior. We look down the side, but let's go ahead and take a look at the rear, where again, you're going to see some of the most dramatic changes over the non-LCI model. So as we get to the rear, you're going to see that the taillights have changed entirely. Now, we've got quite a bit of background light right now, so the running lights on. They're a little bit hard to see, but these are full LED taillights, and it really is a new design, and again, reminiscent of what you'll see on the G80s and G82s. Now, as one would expect, driving an M car, you've got the typical quad exhaust, which is good. You can always tell an M car from the back because all you have to do is look at the exhaust. It's my trick, right? For all of us that take the badges off, or people that change your badges, look at the exhaust. Now, one of the other things you're going to see also is a difference in kind of the roof line here too. So quite a bit different, where you've got these flares on both sides as it comes down. It almost has a split level, which may be a little hard to see on the camera right now, but you've got the inner black layer and then your paint match that comes over the top of that. So adds flare, adds a little bit of extra overhang, and changes the rear view just enough. Now you'll also see, I'll use my shadow, you'll also see the reflectors here are a little bit different here in the rear fascia, and they'll be different as you go through the models of this X3. But all in all, really good. Those reflectors there in the back. Get the rest of the look down this side. You can see the M-style mirrors. And then you also have your approach lights. Just as an interesting thing to point out, right there, you can actually see that little cutout right there on both sides, or actually for your your approach lights. So great looking car. This is a good color, especially a beautiful day like today. So let's take a look at the motor, that incredibly potent S58 motor. So let's take a look at that. Let's talk horsepower and some of its performance. Take a look at what's under the hood. Then let's take a look at the interior next. All right, y'all, so let's go ahead and take a look at this gorgeous S58 motor. So this is everything BMW learned from the S55, and that was the motor that was in the previous generation M's. So that's the F80, the F82, and they've taken all that knowledge and they've made it better, they've iterated, and you have the S58 motor. And this really is that next generation M motor. You're gonna see this in this car, the X4M, the new M3, the new M4, all of those cars with all of these options. Now, one of the coolest things about this, as you take a look at it, is the amount of power you're getting out of this motor. You're gonna get 503 horsepower and you're gonna get 479 foot-pounds of torque out of this motor, and it's going to be able to propel this car to performance that you're going to think it's a sports car. This is the sort of thing that if you came down and bought an M3 and M4, it's the same level of power. Now, the other thing that they've done is they've also improved upon actually all of the strut bracing as well. So there are substantial changes in all of the bracing underneath, so you're going to end up with a car that has better handling, better control. If you had a previous generation like F80, for example, you'd see a big carbon fiber strut bar that would come across. It would secure here to the front and then would tie into your shock towers back here on each side. So now they've come out, they actually have cross bracing diagonally across from the front structure here, but then a straight bar across the top that's actually holding the engine cover down. So it makes it a little bit harder to show you some of the things underneath. But this is such a great motor, and the performance really is impressive. It is something where you can drive this car very reasonably, get great gas mileage when you're taking the kids to soccer practice or you're just driving around town. But if you put it up into sport mode, you're gonna know it. You're gonna put it up in those M modes and it's gonna show off. So what an amazing motor. And I'm really impressed by this, and it's such a next generation motor from BMW. It's worth calling it out. All right, so let's go ahead and jump to the inside, take a look at the interior. As a really cool contrast, this actually has the Tartufo, and forgive me if I mispronounce it, extended merino leather interior. But it's kind of this reddish brown, and it really stands out well with the Brooklyn gray. It's a nice highlight between the two. Now you've got a little bit of sun coming up, so it looks a little bit different there, but what a great interior. Before we got in, I wanted to actually show off these M Sport seats. So these are the ventilated seats, and a lot of the little features I will freely admit I love, and I love the fact that the M badging light up on these seats. So it's cool. I know you've got your back to it most of the time, but I love it. So these have these M Sport seats, and they're ventilated as well. So super comfortable, they hang on to you really well. And so before we jumped in, I want to at least show off the seats so you can see what they look like. Now, this is a brand new car. It's got 11 miles on it total, so everything still has its plastic on it, so you'll have to forgive that. We have this opportunity to do a walk around on the car, but what a gorgeous setup. And actually, I don't think I would have chosen this color if I just picked it out of the selector, but on this Brooklyn gray, it looks really, really good. So let's go ahead and take a look at the controls and the rest of the dash. Okay, so, and again, with this being the LCI, you're gonna see some changes here in the interior. Now, with your controls, you're going to see where your buttons have been moved a little bit and moved around. You've also got your M mode setup button here as well, along with your familiar iDrive controls. And we'll talk about that in a second when we look at the new screen, which is gorgeous. So start and stop button here on the center controls. You have your camera and your PDC controls as well. And of course, along with your setup, your exhaust flap. So you have a manual exhaust flap button here if you'd like to change it differently than what you have in your M modes, for example. We'll talk about that in just a second. Your parking controls and the rest. But as we take up the new screen, now forgive any reflection here. So we've got two things going on. We've got a little bit of afternoon sun on this side, but we also have the brand new delivery plastic is still on this. But this is a 12.3 inch screen, matching the 12.3 inch gauge display screen now as well. So now there's two of them. Now, what they've also done is they've taken it and they've pulled it forward a little bit. So when you're in a seated driving position, you can easily reach the controls now. Where before, depending on where your seat was sitting, you might have to lean forward to actually get to them. You don't need to do that anymore from just a comfortable seated position. But this new screen is just amazing. It is so big. The nice thing about it, as we sit up here a little bit higher, and you're like, is that screen too big? Well, as you look at it from the driver's perspective and you look out, it's not. It's all tucked down below of the hood line and the dash line. So even as we focus in here a little bit closer, you're gonna see that it's never in the way or a distraction. But you're gonna have all the latest iDrive controls. This is that Live Cockpit Pro. And there's so many options here. We could easily spend an hour just on this functionality alone. You have voice control, you have touch control, you have your iDrive controls as well. So everything that you would like to do is all right here. Now, this being, again, such a brand new car with 11 miles on it, it's all back in its just default modes. But the other cool thing about the M cars is that you can actually get into your M menus and start really configuring your M1 and M2 buttons here on your steering control, which we'll talk about in just a minute. Now, the car also has the heads-up display, which my previous F32, my 4 Series, actually had the heads-up display, not this modern, a few years ago, but I kind of miss it. I didn't realize how much I'd used it until I don't have it anymore, and my M2C actually doesn't. So this new X3M Competition does. You also have your ability to modify, a lot of the configuration on your main gauges, which we'll talk about in just a minute. But the amount of configuration that you can set to all of this. Now, one other thing that I really love and has been around for a number of years, but if you drive with more than one person, you have driver profiles. So all of your configuration, just like if you're on your PC at home or on your phone or something similar, where you've configured it to be exactly what you want it to be, where your seat is, what your presets are, all of that, you can set up driver profiles. So you can have it in your own way with all of your presets, and then someone else gets in with the other key, it's going to recognize that and it's going to switch to their presets. And that isn't a new feature of the LCI, but I really do think it's a fantastic feature overall. So you don't have to worry about having to change things back. All right, I had to rearrange it a little bit because I'm getting quite a bit of reflection, and it's because of the protective plastic that's still here on the display. So please forgive me for that. There's really nothing I can do about it. I can't take it off. Obviously, this is a brand new car yet. So, and then the other thing you're gonna see here is you've got a sensor that you can see here on the camera, but you cannot see to the eye. So forgive me on that. Hopefully it's not too distracting, because I do want to show you some of the differences of what you get with this 12.3 inch display and the amount of customization that you get through all of those profiles and the technology. So you've got your speedometer on your left, you have your tachometer on your right, you've got navigation and map information in the center, but that also changes as well. So as I'm pressing my M mode button here in the center console, I'm now in sport mode. So when I look at the display, it's telling me it's sport. So it's changing the performance and handling characteristics. It's getting you set up for a more track situation. But since this is with this X3M Competition, comes with the actual full track mode, if I actually press and hold, it will go to track mode, which is cool. When you select this, it actually cuts off all of your stability and traction control. It turns off your center display as you see that go dark, and really reduces everything to the minimum amount of information, because in a case like that, you're focusing on different things. You're not driving out on the road. So it's showing you how all your settings are for your steering and your suspension and transmission, oil temperatures and all the rest. But what a cool function. With a single button press, you can get all of this information. You can also see in this case, back behind the red stripe, we also have all of our TPS information. And all of this is easily configurable through your display and set up through your profiles and whatever you would like to personally have actually in your car. So again, please forgive the reflections. I'm sorry about that. It's a gorgeous day with a lot of sun and I just can't seem to get around it. But let's go ahead and take a look at what this car sounds like on startup with this M exhaust, and then we'll take it out for a drive. right, guys, so let's go ahead and take this out for just a quick out and back, a test drive of what it would be like to take this car out yourself. Show you a little bit of Seattle in the process. I always find it interesting that with these auto cinch seatbelts, so as I pulled out, the seatbelt that I have on cinched down on me a little bit, which is always interesting with these newer models. So definitely want to take this out, give you a chance to drive this a little bit, see what this is like, and kind of share with you what it looks like in Seattle as we go around. What it's like on the freeway a little bit, and this is where that adaptive suspension is really useful, because through this rough kind of downtown core of Seattle, I'm in M1 mode right now, which I set the suspension to comfort, which is nice because it definitely takes the edge off what are some pretty rough roads here in downtown Seattle. But as you get an opportunity, we get up here on the freeway a little bit, and hopefully traffic won't be too bad, but we'll get a chance to actually, open it up a little bit, try it in sport mode a little bit, and you can adjust that suspension so the handling gets a little bit more aggressive. So let's go M2. It's gonna open the exhaust flap. Definitely sounds a little bit more aggressive already. Now we've got a little bit of traffic today, so and also this is a brand new car, and I'm always going to treat these test drives really considerately, really nicely, considering that this is a test drive of a brand new vehicle with 11 miles on it. So I'm always going to be grateful to BMW Seattle to give me this opportunity, so I'm never going to drive them too aggressively. But yeah, I really do love this S58 motor. It is really impressive. That was a light press on the accelerator on a car that's not even broken in yet. So really impressive. So let's go ahead and take a look at a bit more of the drive, and we'll talk about it out over the lake. S58 motor. It is really quite amazing. Just very slight here in M2 mode, so everything is set in sport. Just the slightest pedal to press and you pick up and go. So changing lanes there was effortless, absolutely effortless. So this really is something that I highly recommend you come and drive, because the difference is incredible. And the deep note out of the exhaust is really good. With the exhaust flap open, it sounds great. It really does. They're called expansion joints on this bridge, and so you can go across them. They can be a little sharp as you go across. Like this coming up right here is an expansion joint, and there's a little bit of a thump as you go across it. And this is where, if you have the technology of an adaptive suspension, it's really nice. So earlier in the bridge, I was set in sport mode, and every expansion like this one, you definitely feel it. There's a bump every time you hit it. Now, that's great if you want to drive a little bit more aggressively and you want that tighter control. But if you just want a much softer ride, or it's been a long day, it's definitely nicer that you can put it into comfort mode in this case, and it smooths all those out. And you still have good communication to the road. I still feel like the steering is expressive, but it takes a little bit of the sharpness out of the irregularities in the road. And it's something that is really nice. So as you take a look at a car like this, adaptive suspension is definitely an added technology that makes a really big difference. My favorite on-ramp for taking the test drive. We'll drift back a little bit. We've got traffic behind us a little bit, so we're not going to be able to drift back too much, but we'll see what it sounds like. Yeah. It's got shift lights through the dash, which is really cool. So it's showing you how it's shifting as it's accelerating. And I love this on-ramp, and normally we get a bit of a chance to get on it a little bit as we come down. But car sounds good. I really love the exhaust note. The S58 motor exhaust is really good. So what a change from the S55. This sounds muscular when you want it to be, but all in all, it sounds great. I'm really impressed. So let's go ahead and take a little bit of the look at Seattle, go back across the lake, and sadly take the car back. So got in the car and adjusted my mirrors. I really do like this new mirror that's in the newer designs. It is almost borderless. The rear view mirror is almost borderless, gives you a good view. I can see the entire back window through it. Side mirrors are really good as well, but as you know, I'm changing lanes, as you can see, as I work here through traffic, which is, you know, a bit of a bummer. We got a little more traffic today, but visibility is good. So not only do you have all of your normal, you know, indicators on the mirrors if I've got a car beside me, but the visibility out the windows over the A and B pillars is really good. So I feel like I've had really just only a little bit of adjustment getting in this car. You know, I've not driven, you know, this X3M, this model, this LCI model, and so. But I feel like I've not had a lot of adjustment to get used to it. It already feels comfortable. The seat is great. So these M Sport seats are fantastic. I really do love the panorama roof. That's one of the things about the X3s I've loved for years, especially with a lot of driving of an E83 X3, the original, and that panoramic sunroof or moonroof. But really good stuff. Let's go ahead and take a little bit left of this drive, trying to enjoy the last bit of this great day here in Seattle, and then we'll wrap up back at the dealership. Yeah, M2. Yeah, you know, starting at highway speed really gets up and goes. It accelerates very quickly. So I'm impressed with this motor and this frame. What a fantastic, the new M motor from BMW. It almost doesn't matter what they put it in. It's going to end up being a fun car to drive. And this really is. All right, you also had to bring the car back, plus I wanted to give you an opportunity to take a look at this amazing panoramic roof. I've always loved them. I love cars with sunroofs, and having this amount of glass is really cool. So thank you to BMW Seattle for giving me this opportunity to drive the car and take it out and share it with you, which I really enjoy doing. As always, the best thing to do is come down and drive one yourself. Check out all the options, all the things that I don't have time to cover for you today, and then also see what this feels like. Is this gonna suit your needs? You know, I fell in love with the X5M when I drove it. What an amazing car. But I actually think I might actually buy one of these instead. I'm not sure I need the space of the X5M. It's perfect. But for my needs, I'd probably buy an X3M. Plus, if you saw my driving review of the original, the pre-LCI X3M with this new S58 motor, you'll know that this car is faster than a Lamborghini off the line that BMW proved at a track in Europe. And this one is slightly faster. They've improved it just a little bit more. So what a fun car. Make sure to come down and check it out. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll see you on my next video.